Pinealon peptide uses. So if you've only heard of Pinealon as a brain peptide, you're missing 2/3 of what the preclinical literature actually uses it for. Now in this video, we're going to uncover what those other 2/3 are. We're going to talk about how it can help with cognitive support, mental clarity and focus, also how it helps support you in neurological stress, if you've had any stress, but then we'll look at the longevity side and how some of the neuroprotective benefits may be very important when it comes to retrieval of information, word use, all of the things that we want to protect as we age. So I'm Regan Archibald, founder of Ageless Future. We're a longevity medicine clinic that hosts events. And I'd love to have you at one of our events because we do peptide parties and you'll be able to see what Pinealon does, Pinealon, maybe even some FG Loop, NewPep. We have all these great things. First, we run your labs. We look at the data. We do this very advanced, what's called an HRB study. We call the BOS scan, the body operations scan. We also do neurocatch, electroencephalogram testing. And then we look at all the arteries in your body. And we go through a deep dive into your labs. All you need to do is go to agelessfuture.com and then click the events link and then come join us in Utah. We'll be in Brooklyn, heading to New Jersey. We've got events in Little Rock coming up in September. We have them all over Denver, Seattle, so I'd love to have you at one of those events. So let's talk about how Pinealon's used. Most of this, we think of it as, the documented use is when cerebral dysfunction. And that's where you have these age-related cognitive decline. And there's lingering consequences that can show up from traumatic brain injuries where this has been used. And if you look at the Russian comparative, most of the data was published in Russian texts, but in the Advances of Gerontology, they placed Pinealon alongside with Cortex, cerebrolysin, and Cmax as neuroprotective peptide bioregulators that can be used clinically in elderly patients. Now, this is not FDA approved in the United States for treating anything. This is not me giving medical advice. It's just me sharing some, what I think is interesting information on a very important peptide. But what they found is in the study, they describe the cellular and molecular mechanisms behind its neuroprotective activities. And they found that oral Pinealon, you can do it as an injection or orally or nasally. They found it improved memory. It reduced headache intensity in patients that had a cerebral asthenia from traumatic brain injury consequences. They also found in the preclinical model, at least this was in a rat model, they found in prenatal hyperhomocysteine anemia, this is elevated homocysteine levels during pregnancy, which injured the developing brain. What we've seen clinically with patients who come in with high homocysteine and they have poor methylation, maybe they've got MTHFR, but we found that they've had traumatic brain injuries. Homocysteine can be one of those markers. You look at homocysteine and fibrinogen, and that can mean there's degeneration going on in the brain. We've seen the fastest way to reduce that is through intranasal stem cells. And then using Pinealon, we've seen even more dramatic results as far as decreasing those homocysteine levels. And then using trimethylglycine, 3 to 9 grams of trimethylglycine seems to be the sweet spot for that. But what they did in pregnant rats, because of course, Pinealon, a lot of people, we do not want to experiment on pregnant women by any means, but these pregnant rats loaded with methionine to increase their homocysteine, they improved offspring spatial orientation and learning and reduced reactive oxygen species and necrotic cells in the pup's cerebral neurons. So this shows to be very effective. At least if your pet mouse is having some babies, we know it can maybe help with them. But they also found that in this study in 2008, they compared the antihypoxic properties of several short peptides. They tested Vilon, Epitalon, Vesugen, and Pinealon under these hyperbaric hypoxic, so these are low oxygen conditions, high altitude. And what they found is Pinealon had the most pronounced antihypoxic effect of the group. So we've got one of our clients who had a lot of carbon monoxide poisoning, and he had 2 exposures to it that almost killed him. And one of the things he noticed as he started taking Pinealon is that his brain came back online and he started feeling better. But we also had him on a few other peptides, one of those being cerebrolysin for the neuroprotective effects. months, his brain was able to get to the place where he could now read a page in a book and remember it. He could start writing again, and he was able to go back to work within 90 days. Whereas the other doctors, after treating him for years, there's probably no way are ever going to go back to work. But one of the reasons why Pinealon seems to work as well is because it's stimulating the cell's internal antioxidant enzyme systems, and that possibly limits some of the excitotoxicity of like MMDA. So these are some of the damage from these hypoxic conditions. They even found that overstimulation of nerves in stroke and trauma, there's an abundance of these free radicals. And what Pinealon does is it activates the enzymes, free radicals, to get scooped up by the antioxidants. So a lot of cool things as far as what we know on Pinealon, but what don't we know? Well, I can tell you there's a lot that I don't know on this, and I'm sure many of you are on the background. What about this, Regan? What about using omega-3s with sleep? And what about mitigating some of the metabolic risk factors? These are all important for the brain, including cognitive training, but we don't have validated human clinical indications for Pinealon. All the uses are primarily preclinical or in the Russian language observational literature, mostly from just one single research group, which is limiting because it's Dr. Covinson's group. But there was an independent 2026 gerontology review that was done by Dr. Covinson's group, but they didn't mention Pinealon. Unfortunately, they did mention epitalon, which I have other videos on epitalon, so go check those videos out. We'll provide some of the links in the show notes because these two peptides sometimes get mistaken. However, they have totally different mechanisms of action. Outside of epitalon, there's no Western randomized control trials, no long-term safety data. None of these are FDA approved, endorsed by some of the medical bodies. But we do know that Pinealon has documented neuroprotective, antioxidant, antihypoxic, protective benefits in preclinical models, and the mechanism of action is very well defined. These are 3 amino acids. So if you think of like little tiny peptides folded in a very particular way that nudge the cells and just remind the genes how to express themselves, so the enzymes get turned on to flush out all those free radicals by stimulating antioxidant production. One of the interesting things is homocysteine is one of the first markers we look at in your lab values, because homocysteine, if it's above 6, you've got a breach in the blood-brain barrier. Anytime you've got a breach in the blood-brain barrier, there's going to be a breach in your gut, and so leaky gut, and there's going to be an acceleration of degeneration in the brain. And so if you look at that antihypoxic work, where they found that Pinealon outperformed all of the other sibling peptides under these low oxygen stress environments, now Pinealon may be one of the fastest ways that we can protect our brain from the onslaught of YouTube videos from guys like me. But hopefully you're enjoying this. I really appreciate you being on the channel. Pinealon and many other peptides we've covered, got hundreds of videos now, and I just want to thank you for subscribing, for being part of the community. For those of you who want to go deeper, come to one of our live events. I promise you will not regret it. You're going to meet some of the coolest people on the planet. Just go to agelessfuture.com, click on the events page, and then the team will get you registered, and look forward to meeting you in person.